Welcome, everybody. I thought I should be doing a video today because it's been a while since I've done any videos for my YouTube channel. And, tomorrow being the most auspicious, one of the most auspicious day in the year, which is Akshaya Tritiya, I said, let me do this very special video on Nakshatras. And this video is going to be quite different from all the videos that I've done in the past. And this is also very key. Why? Because I'm going to talk about a very special and new concept, which is called as Yoga Taras. This is, these are secrets of the ancient civilizations. I'm going to make this video very special by linking the Yoga Tara with the Nakshatra deity and trying to, come out with some linkage with an ancient race, or what we call as aliens. So a civilization which was far more advanced than us, having some association or some linkage that you see with these three specific nakshatras that I'm going to cover today. So I see the alien dominion over Ardra Nakshatra, Chitra Nakshatra, and Swati Nakshatras. And I will very specifically, I will also describe or explain why these three nakshatras are very important as I go through this unique session that I have designed. And just to let you know that this concept of Yoga Taras and how to link them with the Nakshatra deities and to see also who is the primordial force behind these deities is something which has never been written about, which has never been discussed, or it has never been even presented as far as my knowledge goes. So this is a very special research which I carried out over the last couple of weeks. And so let me get started with presenting this video on Yoga Taras, Nakshatra deities, and the alien viewpoints that I want to bring in. Now, there is a very specific reason why I have taken these three nakshatras. Okay, now, when you look at the 27 or 28 nakshatras or the lunar mansions, you also see that each of these asterisms or these nakshatras are made up of multiple stars, okay, the constellations they're made up of. But I was quite astonished and I was quite intrigued by looking at these three nakshatras, which is Ardra Nakshatra, Chitra Nakshatra, and Swati Nakshatra, is because all these three nakshatras have something in common. And the common theme which I saw was the number of stars. Okay, each of these nakshatras were ruled by one star each. Okay, so when you look at Ardra, the word Ardra comes from the Sanskrit root word Rud. Rud means to shed tears. Okay. Now it is the actual word Ardra is not Ardra, it is Arudra. Arudra. So the seed name of this nakshatra is Dra. Dra means to split in Sanskrit. Okay. So you can see the association of Ardra with Dra, which is splitting. Now the ancient names, the other names of this nakshatra, Ardra was also called as Raudrabha, okay, or Bahu. So Bahu usually refers to your shoulder. And if you look at the constellation of Orion, okay, and the Yoga Tara is in every constellation or every nakshatra, there is one star which has a prominent impact on how the nakshatra is going to behave. Okay, based on multiple factors, but this is one of the things which will dictate how this nakshatra is going to give its results. So for Ardra, if you see, it is Betelgeuse, okay, which is called as Alpha Orionis. And this star, Betelgeuse, falls in the shoulder of the hunter. Okay, the Orion, if you see, is called the hunter. So it falls in the right arm or the shoulder of the hunter. And that is how you see our ancients in the Vedic culture have associated Ardra with Bahu. Bahu means shoulder. The other name for Ardra is Trinetra. Okay. Now, look at the next nakshatra, which is Chitra. Now, Chitra comes from the root Sanskrit word which means chit. Chit means to think, to comprehend, okay, to design, to reflect upon. So all these things, you can see that many a times the root word of the nakshatra itself gives you a lot of meaning and insight into what this nakshatra stands for. Okay. Now the other names of Chitra, Chitra was also called as Twastri or Twastra or Taksha. And the Yoga Tara for Chitra is a single star called as Spica or Spica. It is Alpha Virginis. Okay? Now this lies in the lower back portion of the constellation of Virgo. Right? It was called as the hip of the maiden. Now the ancients, our ancients, the Vedic ancients saw that it was the residence of the celestial architect called as Twastar, or later on he was also called as Vishwakarman. Okay. Now, finally, when you go to the last nakshatra for what I've taken today is Swati nakshatra. Now, the root Sanskrit word for Swati is Swa. Swa means self, or it shows the soul or the ego. Right. Now, there is the ancient names of Nishta. The ancient name of Swati was also called as Nishtya. Nishtya means an outcast. Okay, I will explain this whenever I go on to further slides, and I will tell you why this nakshatra was called as an outcast. The other names that you see here, which is reference to Swati, is Anila, Marut, and Pavana. All these three names are the other names of the deity associated with Swati, which is Vayu. Okay, Anila is another name for Vayu. Similarly, Marut is another name for Vayu, and that is why his son Hanuman, it was also called as Maruti. Okay, his son Hanuman was also called as Pavanasuta. Pavanasuta means son of Pavan. Okay, now this nakshatra Swati is ruled by, or rather controlled by, one star which is called as Arcturus or Alpha Butis. That is the constellation in which this star falls under. Right now, when you look at the indication of each of these stars, what I've said is, look at Ardra. It says it's the star of sorrow. It's the star of oppression. Now look at Chitra. It says it's the star of opportunity. Okay. Now, and Swati, you see, it is called as a self-going star. I will explain this when I go further down into my description of these nakshatras. Now, Swati nakshatra and the Yoga Tara is Arcturus. So I've taken Swati first. Now, what I wanted to show you here is a lot of trance channels, a lot of psychics have meditated on this special star Arcturus. Okay. Now, a very famous psychic or a trance channel was Edgar Cayce. Okay. According to him and his preachings, he says in his psychic visions, he saw Arcturus as one of the most advanced civilizations of our galaxy. He says that the Arcturians, they exist in the fifth dimension. Okay, their energies of these fifth dimensions are to have more control over your emotional, your mental, and they have great, spiritual and healing abilities. So if you look at the Arcturians that he refers to, they operate more at the astral plane. Okay? He also, through his divination and through his psychic abilities, he has also explained that he sees Arcturus as an energy gateway, okay, which every human being passes after death, and then he takes rebirth through the same, the same star. So he sees that Arcturus is an individual's pathway or a gateway to return back to the Earth-Sun system. And it is the soul decides, as I said, Swati, I said it's the soul, if you remember. It's the ego, it is the self. So it decides, the soul decides whether it has to return back to the Earth-Sun system that we live on, or to move to another galaxy or to another star in seeking the soul evolution. Okay. Another famous author is Norma Milanovic. She has written a fictional book called as We the Arcturians. Now, what she writes about this special race is, she says she is very much drawn to the Arcturians because they are on a path of God realization. She also mentions that the fifth dimension that we look at on the astral plane, the Arcturians are, they find that the fundamental ingredient for the fifth dimension is love. And she writes in her book that negativity, fear, guilt, everything can be overcome by exchange of love and light. And this is what we today are talking about. Ascension movement. We're talking about moving towards light and harmony, balance, bliss, serenity, calmness. All of these are the essential ingredients to reach the highest dimension, one of the highest dimensions, this fifth dimension of love. Okay. She also goes to say that the Arcturians are quite helpful in the evolution of the humankind or the human race. And they're quite protective of the earth. And it says that the civilization is so very well advanced that they have advanced spacecrafts and state-of-the-art technology. Okay, and she also mentions about a starship which is circling Earth plane in a protective mode, which is called as Starship Athena, and that is why it deters negative extraterrestrial from attacking Earth. Okay, so these are the protective elements that you see of the Arcturians who are trying to protect and to help the humans evolve in the soul evolution. Now, what I wanted to show you is, the deity which is associated with Swati. I said it is Vayu. Okay. Now, Vayu is called as the god of wind and prana. Okay. What is prana? Prana is the life-giving breath. He's also called as the king of the celestial musicians. He is the purifier because it's the breath which purifies, and hence he represents the divine breath of the gods. Right? Now, what you also see is the nature or the category of the star of Swati is Chara, which is movable, which is changeable. Right? However, when you see the Varna associated with this, or the caste which is associated with Swati Nakshatra, is a Bucha type. So it is quite intense, the experiences of people who are under the influence of Swati. Okay. Now, if you look at the bases above and bases below, okay, so I will explain this concept of bases above and bases below as we go deeper into this. Now, movement in different directions, that is the basis above. Okay, and basis below is changing forms. Now, if you look at the Shakti associated with Swati, it is called as Pradvamsha Shakti. Pradvamsha means the power to disperse or scatter like the wind. Okay, so you can see it brings in transformations. Now, I talked about the Arcturians. Now, the Arcturian race, you can find the functioning of the Arcturians and the ethnic lineage or the heritage or the lineage of the Arcturians can be identified with certain specific tribes or groups of people on this planet. Now, some of them which are associated with the Arcturians were Native Americans, the Aborigines of Australia, the Serbians in Asia, the Eskimos in the Arctic region, then the Lapps in the Scandinavian. So how do you see the association with such tribes? If you look at the other name that I mentioned about Swati Nakshatra, it was also called as Nistya. Nistya means an outcast. So these were races which were completely de-linked from the main human evolution. Okay, so these were the sort of races which were highly evolved, and they had a lot of contacts with the Arcturians. Okay, so it is just like the wind, which likes to take you into different directions, and so much so you see this trait in the Swati Nakshatra because of the Pradvamsha Shakti, and so they are just like the deity Vayu. They cannot be. And I also said the nature is chara, which is movable. They cannot be fixed in one place. They always have to be on the move. And it is through this motion or movement and to their travels, it brings them transformation. That is the desire, the inherent desire is to have the freedom to move as they wish in all the worlds so that they can bring transformations. And that is what the Arcturian qualities are, is to move and evolve through different interactions or connection with different races. Now, one thing what I've seen, what I see with this is the connection of, I said, the Arcturians and the deity is Vayu. Now, why is Vayu very important? Because it is life-giving and it is independent. Now, the meaning of Swati also means independent. Okay. Now, why it is independent? If you look at a child when it is born from its mother's womb, it gets independence. Why? Because till about 9 months, till it is born, it is dependent on its mother for every breath, for food, for nourishment, for nurturing, for protection, everything. But once the child is born and the umbilical cord is cut, it is the first breath, which is the prana, the life-giving breath, makes the child independent. Okay, it becomes a completely different entity. And this is where you see its connection with Vayu, who is self-sustaining, who is the giver of the life-giving breath, who makes you independent in life. Now, if you see this connection with Vayu, you see that the primordial supreme force behind this nakshatra is none other than Vishnu. Why? Because you see this connection with life-sustaining, because prana is life-sustaining. You look at the Arcturians, I said, they are the protective race, which is protecting us. Okay. If you look at, it is a very passive nakshatra. Swati is a very passive nakshatra. It's movable, right? It's just like Vishnu, who can take different avatars and manifest himself at any given point in time, or even any given point in any given era. He can, he can take incarnations and come down, and it leads you into God realization, just like the Arcturians, who are evolved souls who are here to show us what is God realization is all about. That is through love, light, and harmony in everybody's life. So you can see this connection with the protector of this universe is Vishnu. So that is the supreme power which rests in Swati Nakshatra. Now, let's go to the next star, which is Chitra Nakshatra. Now I said the single star which is associated with Chitra is called as Spica or Spica. Okay. Now you can see that this nakshatra is called the star of opportunity, and you can see the meaning there. It means Chitra means the bright one, the brilliant one, the multicolored one. Okay, it's a work of art, or Chitra also refers to a pretty picture. So all of this can show you its association with intelligence, activeness, creativity, designing, sculpting, craftsmanship. Also everything where you have to use your mental abilities or mental plane, your manas, your chit, your concept to comprehend, to reflect, to design, to think. So all these things rest with this one single star, which is the Yoga Tara for this nakshatra, which is called a Spica. Now, if you look at this, the association of this nakshatra with the Spicans, this is another ways which is supposed to be quite closely aligned with the energies of active intelligence, economy, and light. Now, they operate at a plane called as the mental plane. As I said, the Arcturians align themselves with the astral plane. The Spicans align themselves with the mental plane. Now you see that the ethnic heritage or the racial inclination that you see, which is very closely related with the Spicans, are the Orientals, which is the Chinese, the Japanese, the Koreans, the Indonesians, so the Mongolians. So all of these have very strong association with the Spican energies. Right? Now, what is the purpose of the Spicans? The Spicans are, as a race, the members, they tend to be very practical and creatively intelligent as a race. And the Spicans' function is to determine patterns which underlie in this universe. So when you look at patterns and disseminating this information to others, that is the purpose of the Spicans. Okay, is to look at underlying patterns and try to disseminate this information to others. Now I try to draw the parallel between the Spicans and the deity, which is Twastar. Twastar is also called as Vishwakarma later on. So you can see his association with creative abilities, okay, skills, needing understanding of fine arts and sciences. Now Vishwakarman is one of the 12 solar deities, what we call as Dwadasha Adityas. Okay. Now he shows exceptional skills in design, ornamentation, and he also brings in brilliant brightness. Okay, because he's a solar deity. Now, this nakshatra, because of his association with creativity, design, this nakshatra is very strongly connected with sacred geometry, patterns, and especially I look at fractals. Fractals are recurring patterns from the same pattern, right? So you see, what you can see is the brightness of the shell, the seashells. You can see there's sort of a fractal which you can see there, okay? And it is just like the pearl which grows in the depth of the sea, in the oyster, which brings the sparkle of brightness. And that is why you see Chitra Nakshatra, the symbol associated is the pearl. Okay, it is the creativity of the animal which creates the pearl within the oyster. Okay. Now this is what I wanted to show you is the association of Vishwakarman. Vishwakarman is called as the cosmic craftsman of the universe, is the designer of the weapons for the gods and both the demons. He's also the celestial designer of chariots and spacecrafts for warriors in mythology. He's also called as a master of Maya and magic. He's a creative sculptor and designer of ornaments and protective armor for the gods and the goddesses. So you can see that he brings in again a level of creativity in getting something very unique, protection, design, concepts. Okay, he presents them very beautifully and makes them very appealing by use of patterns, use of geometry, sacred geometry, things like that. Now, the nature of this asterism is called as mridu. Mridu means soft, mild, tender. Okay, so what you see here is the desire of this nakshatra. Chitra's desire is to have wonderful children. Wonderful children, having children is again about procreation. Procreation and creativity go hand in hand. Okay, you're bringing something new into life, right? And that is where you see the result of the Shakti and the desire is to gain honor in one's work. So these people are quite diligent in their work. They want to see their efforts roll out into honor, fame, and it's a very active nakshatra, right? Now this is where I see the connection of the Spikians and the Yogatara of Chitra Nakshatra with the celestial architect, which is Vishwakarma. Okay, the celestial architect, the craftsman, the sculptor, the designer. So all these descriptions you can see is very strongly connected with one Hindu god, which is called as Brahma. Who's Brahma? Brahma is the creator. Sometimes he's also called as Swayambhu. Swayambhu means he's self-born. He's also very active because he has to be active if you have to create something, if you have to design something. Okay. At the same time, he's very soft. I said it's a Mridu Nakshatra. He's quite intelligent and he's very creative. Because he's very creative, he's intelligent, because he is called the guardian of the 4 Vedas. Okay? Or he's also called who has given us the 4 Vedas. So he embodies knowledge, supremacy, okay, and wisdom. So all of this, you can see this connection with the Spikians, Vishwakarman, and this supreme force behind Chitra Nakshatra, which is Brahma, which is the supreme creator. Now, let's go on to the last nakshatra, which is Arudra, okay, which is called as Ardra as well. I call it Arudra because that is where the seed name comes from, Dra, which means to split, to separate. Okay. Now, Betelgeuse, if you read about Betelgeuse in Wikipedia, you will find out that it is quite a stormy constellation. Okay, it's a stormy star which has become a supernova, or it is going to be a supernova. It's going to explode. You never know how many more years it's going to take, or how many more centuries, or how many more centuries it's going to take to achieve that state. But it is a very, very active, star where a lot of activities are happening. It's very turbulent. It is. If you look at in Wikipedia, it says it's very stormy. It is plagued with thunders and storms and rains, everything. So you can see this association very easily with how the Vedic ancients had described Ardra, associated with Rudra. Okay, he was called as the howling god of thunders and storms. Okay, and you can see the root word is to shed tears. Now this is the association of tears with the rains that you see. Okay, so anyway, the meaning of Ardra is the moist one, the wet one, again with the reference to saying that it is about rains, it is about tears, that is, and the indication is star of sorrow, star of oppression. Now, a very important concept. We talked about bases above, bases below. Okay. Now this is, I put it, emboldened him, and I've magnified this because this is the essence of nakshatras. Okay. This is one. These are 4 words that really make give you the essence or the tattva of nakshatras. The words are as above, so below. And this is where I'm going to tell you how everything on this planet, including us, is just a reflection of the sky, the reflection of the constellations. We are all being influenced by these nakshatras, and we see the imprints of nakshatras in the geographical, in the geography of this planet. The association, you would be astonished when I show you how this linkage is. Now, so remember this: as above, so below. Now, I'm going to show you this, the Orion theory of the pyramids of Giza. Okay. Now, there is a theory which is propagated in the West, which says, if you look at the three the pyramids in Giza, the three main pyramids, it's said that they are completely aligned with the Orion belt. Right? Now look at these three, the main three pyramids that when you see from the sky, it sees exactly like the three stars, which is aligned with the belt of the Orion. Okay. Now they're called as Al-Nitak, Al-Raid, and Mintaka. Okay. These are the three stars which are associated. And on the other end of the spectrum, you see on the right hand top, it is Bellatrix, and at the bottom is Rigel. And what astonishes me is when I look at this map, when I see the map from the heavens onto the ground on the pyramids of Pisa, I was astonished to see that there were two corners of the Orion belt which didn't seem to have too much of signification when I looked at it in this picture. Right? Now, what are these two corners? Right? When you see the red circles there that I've put, what are these two corners? These two corners are associated with these two stars, which are called as Betelgeuse and Rigel. Now, when I read about them, I found out that there was nothing very special about these two points. So what I try to do is I try to map the city in Egypt, which falls exactly below Betelgeuse, okay, and Rigel. Now, what did I come up with? Is I saw that there were two cities which was called as Zawyet Al Aryan, which was associated with Betelgeuse. Okay, that was exactly where Betelgeuse, would coincide or map with a city in Egypt, and the Rigel was associated with the city called Abu Ruwash. Now, what I tried to do was, again, I looked at these three stars, which we called as Al-Nitak, Al-Nilam, and Mintaka, and they were perfectly aligned. If you see the image here, they were perfectly aligned with the three pyramids that we saw in Giza. Okay, and that actually gave me the hint that the star Sirius was associated with a city called as Heliopolis. Okay, so now this is very, very significant, because it cannot be possible that there's so much of perfect placement or mapping which was done by the ancients and the civilizations. Okay, now what intrigued me and what made me go further into this study is I have taken only Betelgeuse because we're talking about Ardra Nakshatra, and so I went on Wikipedia and I read about the city called as Zawyet Al Aryan. Okay, now Zawyet Al Aryan. Okay, I was surprised to see there was a pyramid which was once called as a glorious step pyramid, and many of the Egyptologists would call it the layer pyramid. Now, when I did my study further, I found out that the city of Zawyet Al Aryan today is a necropolis. What is a necropolis? A necropolis is a city or a cemetery. Okay, there are 5 or 6 graveyards, huge dumps of graveyards, which were found in the ruins of the city. Okay, now what is left out, what you see pretty much is the stepped pyramid, which was either it was destroyed and it was supposed to be much earlier than, the construction was supposed to be much earlier than that of the 3 great pyramids of Giza. Okay, and you can see a replica of how this pyramid would have looked like So it was either unfinished, okay, or it was, or it was either, destroyed. So the city of the dead, okay, the necropolis. So again, I see that Betelgeuse and the association with Rudra. Rudra was called as the howling god of thunder and storm. So he destroys. Again, it brings in the energies of Shiva, which is dissolution, destruction. Okay, he is associated with death. Okay, Rudra or Shiva is associated with death, which finishes everything. And you can see it's a necropolis, which is a cemetery, a great necropolis, city of the dead. And if you see today, since, from Wikipedia, I got this information saying that since 1960, much of this area of the city has been restricted for use as a military base. Again, it brings you when you say a military base, again, it brings you the idea of destruction, war. So all these ideas are all linked with this Tikshna Nakshatra. Okay, Ardra is called as Tikshna Nakshatra. Tikshna Nakshatra is the nature. It is fierce. It is deadly. Right? So it is a nature. It is how the city is. It is a military base and it is a necropolis. Now, another study that I went on to do is to see if the Orion constellation was perfectly mapped with another geographical regions. And that brought me to this map, which is called as the Grand Canyon Village in Arizona in the United States of America. And surprisingly, what I saw here is, so these are, the mountain peaks are being named after, the Egyptian mountains, and you can see this perfect alignment. And this spot here, which is associated with Betelgeuse or maps to Betelgeuse, is where the mountain is called the Tower of Seth. Okay, so now when you read about Seth, he is the Egyptian god of chaos. Now, how do you draw a parallel? If you look at the Hindu god of Rudra, it's exactly the same. You see, there is a strong correlation because Seth is supposed to have, killed his own brother Osiris. Okay, he had mutilated his body, chopped it into different pieces, and threw it into the river Nile. Now, look at on the other side, it was Rudra. What did the Rudra do? Rudra, with his arrow, had beheaded his own father, who was Brahma. Okay, decapitated his own, beheaded his own father. So you see this association, Egyptian god of chaos and the howling Hindu god of destructive storms and thunder. So do you see this strong association again? So again, it brings you to the sense that I wanted to come to is Betelgeuse is associated with destruction. Betelgeuse is associated with a dissolution. So the energies there are quite fierce, which is Tikshna, which is fierce. And that is where I wanted to show you the correlation that I've tried to do in this video is between the Yoga Tara, which is a key connect between the Nakshatra deity, and I've shown you how these three stars, which are made of only one, these three nakshatras, which are made of only one star. Okay, these are the only three nakshatras in the entire constellation of 27 or 28 nakshatras, which are made of just one star. And that is why I saw that this connection might be extremely strong. And you see that connection here in the form of Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh, which is, the Yogatara Spica, the Yogatara Arcturus, and the Yogatara Betelgeuse. So thank you for watching this videos, and please share your feedback on this video. And I hope to do more such videos pretty soon. Thank you very much.